enjoy it. Chapter 1. Beginning. He didn't know it, but with the turning of the key, his life would change forever. It had been an enjoyable day in the city, and the taxi meandered round the streets of Kensington. He couldn't wait to go back home and kiss his wife and have a well-deserved hot bath. He let himself in and he ran the water and headed for the bedroom to take off his suit and tie. It had been a long, hard day. Everything was rosy in his garden as he turned the key to the bedroom door. That was until he saw his wife naked on the bed with a man in her arms. They were kissing madly, and in his shock it took him a few seconds to realize that it was his deputy manager, a man 20 years younger than him. He didn't know what to do or say, so he slowly closed the door and then crept out of the house unseen. His heart was beating quickly and he was bathed in sweat. As soon as he stepped out into the street, the rain came down. It reminded him he wasn't dreaming, it was more like a living nightmare, and so he wandered the streets trying to make sense of his life. He and his wife Mary had been married for 30 years, and she was the love of his life, and he had never wanted anyone else. Flashes of the past came to him in painful bursts. The beautiful sunny wedding day, his pride walking down the aisle, the look in her eyes when she said, "I do." He choked back a sob. He didn't know where he was going, but he knew that he needed a drink. He stumbled into the nearest pub in shock, the Grey Horse, and he ordered a double whiskey. His hands were shaking as he gulped it down. He had never been a heavy drinker. He needed it to steady his nerves. The image of his wife curled up kissing that man kept creeping into his mind. The bastard, he thought. He'd give him a new start in the company and showed him the ropes. He had often come round for dinner parties and he had looked on him as a son. What a cliché, he thought. He never thought Mary would be unfaithful to him. He'd been a good loving husband. He continued drinking the whiskey and wondering what he was going to do. He had to go home and he had to go back to work. Should he confront his wife and his work colleague? He wasn't sure if he could do that. He was basically a shy, introverted man who hated conflict and arguments. He was never known to lose his temper. Next page. Chapter 4. Decisions. When he had married, he had been quite fit and he had regularly played for the local cricket team. But now he had gotten lazy and his weight had ballooned to 16 stone. He couldn't remember the last time that he had worked up a sweat. Maybe when he walked over to the TV to change the channel. His hair was thinning and he looked like a jovial sitcom character. He was out of shape and out of luck. His wife, by contrast, swam and jogged regularly. She was in great shape for a woman in her 40s, and it didn't surprise him that she would be able to turn the head of a much younger man. But that's no excuse, he thought, slamming the drink down hard on the table and momentarily startling the regulars. His head was feeling woozy, and he knew that he would have to go home soon, but didn't want to return home drunk. It would just make things worse. He had a lovely home in Kensington, and it was great to come home to, but now it felt like returning to a prison, like a condemned man. He hoped to God that his wife was alone. He couldn't cope with seeing James there. James, who had eaten his wife's meals, drank their wine, sat on his sofa, watched his TV, and was now sleeping with his lovely wife. Tears filled his eyes and the pain swept over him like the cold, dark sea. It was getting late and he knew that he would have to go home soon. He didn't want his wife asking questions. He had a busy day at work tomorrow. He was the manager of an estate agent's, a demanding job. It provided a fairly comfortable lifestyle. Weekends in B&Bs, cruise holidays around the Med, 3 times a year, the high life. The job could be stressful with targets to meet, deadlines. 6 months ago, he had been to the doctors with chest pains. He felt like he was a heart attack waiting to happen. Mary worked part-time in the local library, and by contrast, she had an easy life. with lots of free time on her hands. Plenty of time for an affair, he thought, bitterly, and he drained his glass in one angry gulp. He walked slowly back home. It was obvious to the rain falling slowly on his balding head. He didn't care. He was numb to everything. Hello, viewers. It was obvious, oblivious to the rain falling slow. Oh. He opened the front door and he was relieved to hear that the TV was on, and that meant Mary would be in the living room as usual, watching the soaps. Hi, she said, bright as a button, as if nothing had happened. How's your day been? You're late, she said. Oh, okay, he said nonchalantly. I had a headache, so I went for a walk. She kissed him on the cheek, and it was hard for him not to pull away, repulsed. I've made dinner, she said with a smile. She looks happy, he thought. I wonder why. He ate his shepherd's pie slowly. There was a little conversation. He complained of a headache, and that seemed to do the trick. He couldn't wait to fall asleep and for the day to be over. He flopped out in front of the TV where Mary was sitting in her armchair contentedly. Hello, viewers. He was glad that she wasn't lying next to him like she used to. It was strange how feelings could change in an instant. Later, the pie tasted metallic and lifeless, which was just the way that he felt, and he had a pain in his chest like grief. For the love of his life, to betray him was like a punch in the guts, a death in the family. He felt like crying, but he knew that he had to keep himself together, as he didn't have the heart for a confrontation. He absent-mindedly watched the news, willing the hours to go by. Hello, viewers, please sub me. He could fall asleep by his once lovely wife, who was now dead to him, and surprise, surprise, she went to bed early. When he finally got to bed around 11, she was asleep or pretending to be. He lay next to her and stared at the ceiling. He couldn't bear to look at the wedding photos or his wife's face. She was like a corpse to him, dead or decaying. She had sucked all the life out of him. He willed himself to sleep as he had a busy day tomorrow with his new enemy, James, the man he had once trusted, who had betrayed him, who had seduced who he thought. That night finally came and enveloped him for a few hours like a warm, relaxing bath. Chapter work. When he woke, she had gone early, and he was pleased. He showered and shaved quickly and made himself his usual coffee. The drumbeat of the city was pounding as the lights sparkled, and people peered into the night like fishes, bug-eyed in the deep. It was the beginning of May, and spring was working its magic, and he picked up his briefcase, took a deep breath, and stepped out to face the challenges of the day. The birds were twittering madly, and the day was waking up, just like him. His regular taxi was waiting for him like a black cloud, and so he climbed in as the houses flew by. Full of happy couples, he thought, despondently. Tom wished that he could turn back time and rewind the days to when he was happy with his lovely wife, and the future was a long, gentle slide of happiness. He was dreading seeing James, but he knew that he had to keep his cool and not to say anything. He could see him in his leather chair, swiveling around in happiness, with a smug smile on his face. His jet black hair swept back, and his striped shirt tight with bulging muscles. It was obvious that he was in great shape, and he knew it. But that's no excuse, he thought, and he ground his pencil hard into the icy white of the paper. It was going to be a long day. Oh Christ, he thought, he's coming over. He looked down and pretended to be busy with his paperwork. Morning, said James with a big, white, perfect smile. He looked pleased with himself, as anyone would be who was having an affair with a stunning woman. Stunning older woman. Anyone selfish, that is. Hope you like this section. Night, night.